Okay, just a quick video on testing and possibly repairing a diode board. This particular diode board is off a 1975 BMW R90s. You can see it over here. The issue that I was having with this particular board is initially the light just wouldn't go out. I've made a couple of repairs on this board and now the light is intermittently flickering. It doesn't matter at what RPM. Sometimes it comes on at high RPM, sometimes at low. So there's some kind of a bad connection. And actually, as you're looking at this video, you'll see that there's been some repair done on this diode board. You can see some shiny spots there because I've already isolated the problem on this one. So first, I want to go over with you the tools you're going to need. If you're just going to test, you're going to need a multimeter. This happens to be the one I have. Pretty much any one will work. I've seen them for like $5 at Harbor Freight. The setting that we're going to be using is, see that little arrow? It's not focusing real well. I'm doing this on an iPhone, so you're going to have to bear with it. That arrow right there with a line at the end of it and a dash through it, that's a continuity test. I don't know the official name for it, but it does test continuity. So in order to do our test, we're going to point our dial to that. We're going to have something on the digital display. That's going to change as we do our tests, and I'm going to show you all that. That's all you're going to need to test it. If you want to do any repairs on it, in my particular case, I've got a Dremel tool with a wire brush on the end to help clean up the contact areas on the diode board. I've got a soldering iron, a little bit of solder, and some flux, and a frosty cold adult beverage, which you'll notice I'm working on top of my kegerator here because my workbench is such a mess right now. So I'm going to go ahead and set the phone down and try to get everything into view, and then I'll show you from there what we need to do to test the board initially. Let's see. Ooh, I wish I had a zoom out feature. I'm going to need more height. Okay, that's pretty good. It's going to be kind of upside down. I'm going to try to work with it, but that should give us what we need. So I'll point out the features of the diode board. There's some other videos online. I know Jan has one that's really good. Some other people do. I'm just going to point out some features. These are your 6 major diodes right there. If you can look in the side there, I'm not sure if you can see it, but the diodes go through and connect on this side. They are pressed in out here and they're making connection with the solid board that they are on. Some other things I want to point out on this board. On this side, you've got brass directly pressed into the housing here. On this side, you've got insulative rubber pressed in here. And the reason that matters is because this side over here is going to be your positive side, and your positive side is insulated from grounding out when you bolt it to the engine. This over here is going to be your negative side. Your negative side actually grounds through these to the engine. The negative side is towards the top, the positive side is towards the bottom when it's mounted on the bike. In addition, you've got 1, 2, 3 prongs in here. These are connections that the wires from the stator hook to. It doesn't matter which wire goes on which one of those connections. Over on this side, you've got another connection. That's on older ones you won't have this. Let's see, is that in the video? Yeah, I think it is. Right here. That's your Y connection. That goes on a black wire to the stator, to a small nut holds the other end of that wire onto the stator. Then you also have these 2 connections right here. These 2 connections are the same thing, which I'll show you over on the other side. Those go to your blue wires. You have 2 blue wires, but they're probably in one connector. Because they are joined together. So it'll go on one of these. I use this one because that kind of keeps them in order. But you could use this one. It really doesn't matter. And then over here, you've got your battery connections. And some of you will only have one heavy wire that goes on here on the R90s. Probably on some other models, I'm not sure. You've got two. One of these goes to the battery, I believe the bigger one here, and the other one goes to the starter. And actually all of your power is run through here. These are connected together. They are one thing. There's no insulator there or anything. I'm going to flip this over and show you the printed circuit board. On this side, you have what is known as a printed circuit board. If you look really closely, you can see the lines running in here. Those are actually a kind of copper foil that is laid on top of the circuit board, or on top of the board, and then it's covered in this coating. Coming through, you have the connections for different diodes, for different terminals. If you follow these around, what you can see is that you can actually follow it around and see the way the current travels on the board. You can actually follow it around. There are 11 diodes in total on this board. Difficult to show, but I showed you the 6 on the other side, the 6 major ones. In here, you're going to have one that connects this side of the board to the chassis over here. You're going to have one that connects this side of the board to the chassis over here. Then you're going to have 3 more, which are way down in there, and I don't believe there's any way I'm going to be able to show you those. I don't have a light handy to shine down in there. But if you look down in there, you're going to see them. There's 1, 2, and 3. You can actually see their connections on this side, right here. Let's see. Here's one of them, connects from here to here. Another connects from here to here, and another from here to here. Hopefully you got to see that. That was kind of out of view. So, what we're going to do is we're going to test all 11 of those diodes, and we're going to test them each in 2 directions. Well, a diode is basically a one-way valve, and the idea is that current can flow through one way, cannot flow the other way. So, let's start by testing the 6 major diodes. To test the 6 major diodes, we're just going to simply come to these terminals right here, and I'm going to have to get my multimeter in view somehow where you can see it. Oh boy, this is I definitely need more viewing area. Let's see if I can get this up even higher now. There we go. Actually, it looks like you get a little more light with it there too. So you might even be able to see a little bit better. I want you to be able to see this screen over here and the numbers that come up on there and what I'm testing over here. So, initially, we're just going to test off of here. We're going to take our ground and we're going to go to this side. And as you can see on the screen there, you've got a 0.505. That means there is current going from this. See, the positive side is right here, touching this case. So there's current going from the positive side, from this case to this terminal right here. Okay, let's test all 3 of those that way. We have current, we have current, and we have current. Okay, now we're going to reverse our things here, and we're going to test and see if current is flowing from this to this. From the terminal to the chassis over here. So, right now you see I've got the red on the terminal, the black on the chassis, and the numbers didn't change. There is no flow. Let's test the other 2. Again, no current. Again, no current. Okay, so that tested these 3 diodes right here. And we have current in one direction. We do not have current in the other direction. Now we're going to test these 3 diodes over here. So again, we're going to go back to negative on here, put the positive on the case. No current flow. Let's check the next terminal. No current flow. And we'll check the next one. No current flow. We're going to reverse these again. So now we're positive on the terminal, negative on the case. And we have 0.5 current flow. Again over here, 0.5. Again over here, 0.5. So these three diodes tested good as well. They flow, each one of them flows current in one direction. Each one of them does not flow current in the other direction. Now, the next thing that we need to test is the printed circuit board. Now, these tests, there's probably other ways to do them, but I want to test these little individual diodes right here that go from there to there. So, we're going to put one on here and our power over here on the chassis ground. You see that? We're just touching it up against the chassis, and we have current through there. Now, we're going to reverse that. And I'm having a hard time getting a good contact on there. No current flow. Let's test the other one up here in this corner. No current flow that way. Current flow that way. Okay, so we've tested those two diodes. The next diodes that we have to test are the three that are up inside there. The way that we test the three that are up inside there, I don't know what the official test is. I'm assuming everything flows through this stuff, so you probably ought to go off a terminal, but I'm going to test them at their actual connections on the printed circuit board here. That's the way I'm going to test them. If I had analyzed this for a while, I could figure out how they're going to flow. But so the first one is going to be right here. We're going to test from there to there, and we have no current flow. If we reverse that, we have current flow. The next one, we're going to test from here to here, no current flow. If we reverse that, we're going to have current flow. Okay, and then there's a third one, and the third one's over here on the other side, and it's from right here to right here. No current flow that way. And you got to try to get it through this this coating material. We got current flow that way. So all of those diodes tested good. At this point, we have tested all 11 diodes. All we've tested is the diodes. But when we did the big test on this side using these prongs, we pretty much tested the circuit all the way through from here to ground. However, in this case, this particular case, with these three diodes, I don't know the exact flow here, but I do know what's wrong with this one. And what's wrong, I don't know if you can catch that on camera, but if I touch this, that moves a little bit. I'm going to see, do you see that little wiggle there? If you look real up close, and it's going to go blurry, I bet. Yeah, it will. You can actually see that it's not making contact around the edge right here. So even though the diode is good, the diode on this side is intermittently losing contact with the printed circuit board right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to repair this diode board. As you can see, I had the same issue here and the same issue here. Very, very hard to see because these are all, like these over here, under this rubberized coating. So you can't see if it loses its connection up under that rubberized coating. What I did is I just took them and I tried to wiggle them, each one of them. And when I tried to wiggle this one, I noticed just a tiniest little bit of wiggle, and I realized that this one was an intermittent contact. These two were doing exactly the same thing, and I have already soldered those. So the next step in this process is I'm just going to go ahead and repair this. So I'm going to put my multimeter away for a moment. One way to test that would be you could actually put your thing on here and push down into that and test your, anyway. Alright, so for now I put my multimeter away. I'm going to warm up my soldering iron. I have already taken the Dremel tool and I've cleaned that up just enough that I can get enough solder from right here on that little wire down onto the PCB down there. So I'm going to plug in the soldering iron and let it get warming up. I have never done anything with electronics other than playing with automobiles, so I'm no pro at this, and I make a mess out of my solder, but I do get the job done most of the time. So this is flux. I like to get a big mess of flux and coat up, get a big wad of it sort of on the end of my wire, like so. And I'm going to put that's a bit more than I wanted. Yeah, so I'm going to put some flux right down there. And the idea is flux helps the solder flow out. I guess it helps it get to a bite. The key is you don't want the solder crossing from one line on the PCB over onto another. There's actually a division here and there's a division here. This is one wire on the PCB, and I think that's about as far as that one goes, and it's not connected to that one or that one, so we don't want to accidentally connect it. That's not our goal. Our goal is just to put enough solder to hold this thing in place so it won't jiggle around the way it did anymore. And you can see my iron's warm. The flux is smoking when I get down on it. We're going to heat everything up here. It'll resist you and act like it doesn't want to melt, and then all of a sudden when it does melt, it'll just melt all at once. It'll just... That seems to be the way it does for me. So, Walmart soldering iron, I could come up with something better than this. Okay, so there it goes. It's starting to melt. There's plenty of flux. We're going to put it down on here. Let it get hot and flow out. It's not flowing out just yet. It's fighting me. I'm going to try turning this fan off. There we go. It's about 100 degrees out here in Oklahoma today, so there we go. Nice good flow out in the solder there. I'm happy with that. That piece is not moving again. It didn't make a connection off of this circuit board or onto another one. So I'm going to call that good. That is a repaired diode board, as far as I can tell. Because it was intermittent, it's going to be difficult to test without just putting it back on the bike. But what those do, those three little diodes control, they pull current from each of the stator wires, and they send it to the blue wire, the Y wire, which goes back up to your voltage regulator, tells the voltage regulator how much controls what goes to or from the battery, and then also turns that dash light on and off. So I'm fairly certain that the test for that one is actually, you shouldn't have anything this direction, I don't believe. Oh, let's get this back in view. Yeah, matter of fact, I remember this is the test for sure. So we go positive on the Y wire and negative on each one of the stator wires. We shouldn't have current at all flowing that way. However, if we test the other way, positive on the stator wire, negative on the Y wire, we're going to have 0.5 approximately on each one. And that's what we have. So we have an accumulated 14, 15 volts, whatever, that's going to go back up that Y wire and tell that voltage regulator, what to do with this current going to it. So I don't know what else to say about this. It'll take me a little while to put it back on the bike. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this video down, and if you have any questions, you can just comment, and I'll do my best to answer them.